The iconic landmarks of the city of San Francisco are familiar to people around the world. Less recognized is San Francisco's efficient network of public transportation crisscrossing the city and serving 36 neighborhoods, each with a unique history and scenic sights. Before cable cars began riding the steep hills of San Francisco, public transportation in the city came as early as 1851 in the form of a stagecoach service. A horse-drawn omnibus operated between Portsmouth Square and Mission Dolores. Called the Yellow Line, it ran on Kearny Street to Mission Street, then continued on a toll road made of wooden planks through sand dunes and largely undeveloped land. The stagecoach was soon replaced with a faster and more efficient horse car, which operated on rails. In 1860, the Market Street Railroad Company began operating a steam train on Market Street. The steam line covered Market Street from 3rd Street, then branched off to Valencia Street and ended at 16th Street. But climbing hills proved problematic for both horses and steam trains. After watching the suffering of horses pulling heavy loads on slippery pavement, a manufacturer of wire ropes named Andrew Halliday came up with the idea of having streetcars pulled up the hills by a cable. Halliday, along with railroad engineer William Epplesheimer, built the first cable car line on Clay Street in 1873. By the end of the century, 24 cable lines, operated by private companies, were crisscrossing the city. The 1906 earthquake marked the decline of the cable car system, as most of the damaged lines were rebuilt as more efficient electric streetcars. In 1912, financed by public bonds, the San Francisco Municipal Railway, or Muni, was created to take over the Geary Street Park and Ocean cable car line operated by the United Railroads Company. Muni replaced the cable cars with electric streetcars and renamed the line A. Geary and Park. Muni then expanded its operations by taking over privately owned franchises. As the city expanded westward, new housing sprung up on the hills above Eureka Valley. In the 1940s, Muni created 2 new bus lines, the 43 Roosevelt to serve Corona Heights, Cole Valley, and Haight-Ashbury, and the 37 Corbett to cover Clarendon Heights and Twin Peaks. In the 1960s, the 37 line was extended to reach Diamond Heights. The 43 Roosevelt was rerouted in 1980 to form a crosstown line running west of Twin Peaks. It was renamed 43 Masonic, leaving the 37 Corbett to take over most of the 43 Roosevelt route. The end of the line was relocated to Masonic and Haight, while the Diamond Heights section, already covered by the 52 Excelsior line, was eliminated. For our trip on the 37 Corbett line, we meet our bus at the Masonic and Haight terminus in the heart of the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood. We'll be riding both the Orion 7 hybrid bus Muni, acquired in 2007, and the new Easy Rider 2 hybrid electric bus, which was added to Muni's fleet in 2022. Manufactured by El Dorado National California, or ENC, the Easy Rider 2 provides more reliable and cost-effective service on the routes historically served by shorter buses. At 32 feet long, the bus has seating for about 25 passengers and room for multiple people using wheelchairs. At Masonic and Haight, the 37 line connects with the 7 Haight and 43 Masonic bus lines. The 7 line runs an east-west route from Market Street to the Sunset District and Ocean Beach, while the 43 line runs its north-south route from the Marina to the Excelsior District. Turning onto Ashbury Street, we cross paths with the 33 Ashbury trolley coach on its way to the Mission District. As it climbs toward Ashbury Heights, the 33 trolley passes the house at number 710 Ashbury Street. Between 1966 and 1968, this discreet Victorian was home to the famed rock band, the Grateful Dead. We now rejoin our 37 bus as it passes another notable Victorian on Ashbury Street. There, on the second floor at number 635, singer and songwriter Janis Joplin shared an apartment with her friend Peggy Caserta from 1967 until Joplin's death in 1970. Right around the corner on Haight Street, Peggy Caserta ran a hippie clothing boutique called Nasitica. One of Caserta's creations was the bell-bottom jeans, which became a craze after the Levi Strauss Company agreed to produce them. Next door to Peggy Caserta's former boutique is the Jimi Hendrix Red House. Although the house has become a pilgrimage for the legendary musician's fans, there is no evidence that Jimi Hendrix ever lived in that house or even visited it, or that Hendrix ever lived in San Francisco. In 1883, the Market Street Railway Company started the Haight Street Cable Car Line to bring people to Golden Gate Park. The opening of the Haight Line also helped develop the neighborhood along Haight Street. In 1895, an amusement park called The Chutes opened on Haight Street between Clayton and Cole. Its main attraction was a boat on rollers, which dropped from a 60-foot tower into an artificial lake. After the 1906 earthquake, the cable car line was electrified and renamed 7 Haight. Streetcars were replaced by a trolley service in 1949 after Muni acquired the Market Street Railway Company. Pictured here is streetcar number 457 on one of its last runs, passing in front of Met Superior Donuts and the Haight Theater. Built in 1910 as a movie theater, it was remodeled in 1937 in the streamlined modern style. After its closure as a movie theater in 1964, it hosted rock concerts before its demolition in 1979. Most apartments and houses in the Haight-Ashbury were built between 1890 and 1910, primarily in the era's popular Victorian style. The neighborhood attracted families of the more affluent middle class. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, many of the Victorians stood empty or were converted into boarding houses. In the summer of 1967, over 100,000 young people headed for San Francisco looking for love, drugs, and rock and roll. But their romantic visions of utopia were short-lived. By the 1970s, Haight Street had become a hangout for drug addicts and drug dealers. In the 80s, people started buying the old Victorians and fixing them up. With property values rising, the Haight-Ashbury became a desirable residential neighborhood, as well as a major tourist attraction. With Haight Street behind us, our bus heads south through the quiet neighborhood of Cole Valley. which has the distinction of being the smallest neighborhood in San Francisco. In the 1890s, a small number of developers promoted Coal Valley as a fashionable residential neighborhood for the upper middle class. At Carl Street, we pass the tracks of the N Judah Light Rail Line. The N line runs an east-west route from downtown to Ocean Beach through the Sunset Tunnel. After the opening of the Twin Peaks Tunnel in 1918, the creation of another tunnel to reach the Sunset District was considered. 3 different routes were proposed: the Mission Sunset and Eureka Valley tunnels as an extension to the Twin Peaks Tunnel, and the Duboce Avenue tunnel under Buena Vista Park. The San Francisco Board of Supervisors favored the Duboce Avenue tunnel, which offered the most direct route to the Sunset District. Renamed Sunset Tunnel, it opened in 1928 and was credited with spurring development in the Sunset District in the 1930s and 40s. After crossing Parnassus Avenue, we begin our climb to Ashbury Heights. Many of the original homes from the 1890s and early 1900s are still standing today. Victorian styles, from the ornate Eastlake with its square bay windows, to the flamboyant Queen Anne with towers overlooking the neighborhood, or the elegant Edwardian with more sober and graceful lines, to the more modern and contemporary, all seem to blend nicely to give Ashbury Heights its unique charm. On Carmel Street, we reach the highest point of the first part of our trip, just below a little-known park called Tank Hill. Walking up Twin Peaks Boulevard, we find the narrow wooden steps that will take us to the park. This quiet perch atop Ashbury Heights offers one of the best sweeping views of the northern part of San Francisco. The name Tank Hill came from a water tank built here in 1894 by the Spring Valley Water Company to store drinking water pumped from the nearby Laguna Honda Lake. In 1930, the city took over the private water company to establish the San Francisco Water Department. After the water tank was removed in 1957, Tank Hill was turned into a public park. We now leave Tank Hill and continue our trip toward Corona Heights Park and Buena Vista Park. Turning onto Clayton Street, we pass the Ashbury Tank House. This reservoir, holding 500,000 gallons of water, was built in 1912 after the failure of the city water supply during the 1906 earthquake. The city built the auxiliary water supply system as an emergency firefighting network of pump stations, reservoirs, and cisterns connected to 135 miles of pipes serving hydrants across the city. A network of 177 buried cisterns are located beneath intersections throughout the city. Their location is indicated by large red brick circles embedded in the pavement. On Clayton Street, we cross paths again with the 33 Ashbury trolley coach on its way to the Mission District. In 1935, the 33 Ashbury became San Francisco's first electric trolley line, operated by the Market Street Railway Company under the name 33 18th and Park. When the line was acquired by Muni in 1944, it became the 33 Ashbury and 18th Street. Turning east onto 17th Street, we pass a retaining wall with a series of 82 concrete steps, climbing the hill of Mount Olympus. Once designated as the geographic center of the city, Mount Olympus was turned into a monument garden in 1887. The pedestal standing at the top of the garden once held a massive statue representing the goddess of freedom. Called the Triumph of Light, it held a brightly lit torch that could be seen from miles around. The torch was eventually turned off as it confused arriving ships into thinking it was the entrance of the Golden Gate. Stairs were added in 1927 and trees were planted in the 1940s to embellish the site. Badly eroded with time and having lost both arms, the Goddess of Freedom was removed in 1954, deemed beyond repair. Although residential buildings have sprung up around the garden, glimpses of the spectacular vista can still be caught through the overgrown trees. Roosevelt Way was literally carved out of a large hill that once extended from Buena Vista Park to Market Street. In the 1890s, excavation began on the hill to make way for a quarry and brick factory. Operated by brothers George and Harry Gray, the factory produced bricks of substandard quality. Residents complained about falling rocks and flying debris from rock blasting that were damaging their homes. Plagued by lawsuits and after one of the brothers was shot and killed by an unpaid worker, the quarry closed down in 1915. Known as Rock Hill, the city acquired the site in 1941 and renamed it Corona Heights Park. An inbound 37 bus leaves Roosevelt Way and heads toward Buena Vista Park. This section of the inbound line takes a route along the park before rejoining Roosevelt Way at Masonic Avenue. Once called Hill Park, the city made Buena Vista Park its first public park in 1867 and gave it its present name. We now catch up with our outbound bus as it heads toward Market Street. After crossing Castro Street, we reach the Duboce Triangle. Developed in the 1890s and early 1900s, this neighborhood of mostly flats and apartment buildings was largely spared by the earthquake and fire of 1906. Many of the original structures are still standing today. The neighborhood was first bordered by Market Street, Castro Street to the west, and Duboce Avenue to the north, thus forming a triangle. Its northern boundary was later extended to Waller Street to include Duboce Park. At Church Street, we change directions and head west on Market Street toward Twin Peaks. The tracks on Market Street belong to the F Market historic streetcar line. Muni operates a fleet of vintage streetcars along Market Street and the waterfront. To ride one of these vintage streetcars, look for the F-Line sign on one of the protected islands and hop on board for a memorable ride. In 1880, the Market Street Railroad Company extended its Market and Valencia steam train line to 25th Street to connect with the Mission Station of the Southern Pacific Railroad, while the Market Street section was extended to Castro Street. The steam train was replaced with a cable car in 1888 to cover the length of Market Street and continue on Castro Street to 26th Street in Noe Valley. The line was then renamed Market and Castro. When the cable car system was rebuilt as electric streetcar lines following the 1906 earthquake, the Market and Castro line was renamed 8 Market. But the gradient on Castro Street to Noe Valley proved too steep for streetcars, and the Castro Street section of the cable line was kept to complete the route between 18th and 26th Street. The Castro cable car was replaced by the new 24 Divisadero bus line in 1941, and the route was extended north to the Marina District. The intersection of Market and Castro Streets was also the location of the east portal of the Twin Peaks Tunnel. In the early 1900s, landowners who had acquired large parcels of land west of Twin Peaks financed the creation of a tunnel to undercut the range of hills that had blocked the westward expansion of the city. When the tunnel opened in 1918, Muni created the K and L lines to run streetcars in the tunnel. These streetcar lines transformed the remote expanse of sand dunes called outside lands to the new neighborhoods of West Portal, Forest Hill, St. Francis Wood, Stern Grove, Parkside, and Lake Merced. In 1980, Muni began replacing its above-ground streetcar lines on Market Street with a light rail metro system. Today, the K, L, and M metro lines connect directly with the Twin Peaks Tunnel. Leaving Market Street and branching off to 17th Street, our bus begins its climb toward Twin Peaks for the last leg of our trip. Once called Corbett Road, the street follows the old trail that led to the San Miguel Toll Road. The toll road was paved in 1872 to provide easier access to the sand dunes west of Twin Peaks. It was also the route farmers used to bring their produce and dairy products to the city. The San Miguel Toll Road was renamed Portola Drive in 1915. Clayton Street, we cross paths for the last time with the 33 Ashbury trolley coach. From Presidio Heights to the Haight-Ashbury neighborhood and through Eureka Valley to the Mission District, the 33 line is the city's second oldest electric streetcar line, going back to 1892. Our bus now reaches the highest point on the line, with the beginning of a marked trail that will take us to Twin Peaks. After a sharp turn onto Burnett Avenue, our bus heads back along the narrow, winding streets of the 37 route. The trail takes us to Twin Peaks Boulevard at the foot of the South Peak called Noe. From the top, we get a clear view on the North Peak called Eureka. At 922 feet of elevation, the peaks form a divide for the summer coastal fog pushed in from the Pacific Ocean. Their west-facing slopes often get fog and strong winds, while the east-facing slopes receive more sun and warmth. Closer to our feet, we might spot the mission blue butterfly, an endangered species that still survives in a few Bay Area parks. Look for silver and summer lupines, two native shrubs that act as host plants for the butterflies. In 1905, Chicago architect Daniel Burnham had a grand plan to build a series of stairs that would ascend in a straight line from the Castro to Twin Peaks, with fountains and a Greek pavilion at the top. But the plan was buried by the 1906 earthquake. Whether you choose to remain at the base of the peaks or climb along the trails to the top of Noe or Eureka, Twin Peaks will turn out to be a spectacular way to end your trip on the 37 line. From the trendy Haight-Ashbury neighborhood and the quiet hills of Ashbury Heights to the charms of Corbett Avenue and the breathtaking panoramas of Twin Peaks, the 37 Corbett line will take you on a memorable journey around the heart of San Francisco.